All that really matters though is that ClayFighter 2 is a fun play, once in a while. Moving on from the Super Nintendo, we have the N64 game, ClayFighter 63 1/3. You see, they call it ClayFighter 63 1/3 because the joke is that a lot of N64 games were called 64. Mario 64, Donkey Kong 64, you know, Star Fox 64. So ClayFighter guys are like, we're funny people. We're gonna call it 63 1/3. Could have been a half even, but a third, like damn. Like they really, they were slapping some knees back then. ClayFighter 63 1/3 marks the series' first foray into a new console generation, and right away it shows that off with the big 3D island spinning behind the title screen. Once again, we get a change of location with the ClayFighter crew making their way to Claymoto Island for this newest rumble, and with it, yet another tonal change that's highlighted in the tribal, almost creepy sounding music. Moving to the character selection screen, it's already clear that there's more unique playable fighters here than ever before, not counting the doppelgangers from C2. And those question mark blocks aren't just for show either. Besides the 9 that you start off with, there's 3 more secret characters that you can unlock. Bad Mr. Frosty and Blob return yet again, making them the only 2 characters that have appeared in every single game in the series. They've also both had a massive design overhaul. Bad Mr. Frosty's really bulked up since the last game, and he's wearing his signature hat again. I guess he decided to stop being cool. Blob has not only changed physically but mentally as well. Whereas before the green ball of clay came off as an intelligent troublemaker, 63 1/3 sees him dumbed down, and apparently leaning towards a good alignment. We also have some returning ClayFighter alumni that were left out of C2. Bonker the Clown is back, and he's really slimmed down. That doesn't make him any less dangerous, however, as he's more sadistic than ever and stock full of deadly tricks. Ichabod Clay has had quite the upgrade, trading in his old goofy ghost sheet body for a much grittier one. He's still not exactly the scariest Pumpkinhead, but it's a lot easier to take him seriously now. Taffy is easily the returning character that has had the least change in appearance, so there isn't too much to comment on here. Oh, he does use a gun now, by the way. The only returning fighter that was introduced in C2 is Hoppy, though the now cybernetic rabbit goes by the name T-Hoppy, and he's traded in his familiar Austrian accent for that of a drill sergeant. Debuting for the first time, we have Kung Pao, a martial artist chef in training who has dreams of being both a black belt and a gourmet master. He has moves where he yells poo-poo platter and pork fried rice, so take of that what you will. On an almost as racist note, we have Hongan, an evil Jamaican voodoo witch doctor who uses a rubber chicken as a weapon. Jamaican, huh? I wonder if he knows Nana Man. Finishing off our list of starter characters is none other than Earthworm Jim. Yeah, belonging to the parent company Interplay, Earthworm Jim's guest appearance was actually a hot advertising point for the game, and it's really awesome that they included him. Moving on to the secret characters, we first have the boss and main antagonist of the game, Dr. Killen. Killen is the stereotypical mad scientist who wants to take over the world, specifically through the use of his corrupt clay creations. For a beanpole scientist, this guy can actually fight. Our next secret character is Sumo Santa. Yes, you heard that right, it's the children's Christmas icon Santa. If he was an evil, tyrannical sumo wrestler. I mean, what else is there to say? The final secret character happens to be another guest cameo from the lesser-known Interplay series Booger Man. Booger Man is a gross, inappropriate superhero who uses his burps, farts, and of course boogers when fighting his opponents. What really sets this cast of goofy characters apart from the other games is that they're now voiced by some legendary cartoon voice actors, including Rob Paulsen, Frank Welker, Tress MacNeille, and Jim Cummings. And if that wasn't enough vocal star power already, the fights are commentated on by none other than famed boxing ring announcer Michael Buffer. Let's get ready to crumble! Getting into the game itself, it's pretty much what you'd expect at this point. The arcade mode has you going all over the island, facing off against the other fighters until finally having one final battle with Dr. Killin at the end. The gameplay mechanics, however, have changed drastically. You still have your basic 6 attack buttons, but now there's also super moves that you can use after building up your super meter. Super moves range from Street Fighter ripoffs like Kung Pao's Tornado Kick, to really weird or unique moves like Ichabod's possessing his opponent. While the numerous super moves definitely make the game a lot more fun to play casually, the game still has a major balancing issue. Many super moves are hardly worth doing in a competitive sense, as just a couple heavy moves from your opponent can easily deal more damage. And the correct timing to combo into these moves isn't always clear, with simple attacks often bringing you to a halt. The game is also very unique in that it's a 2D fighter that plays on a 3D plane, allowing you to travel all over each level. The positive here is that this plays into the ability to knock opponents from one room to another, sometimes reaching entirely different levels, which can be quite amusing. The negative is that with so much freedom to move around, characters can easily play chicken on larger levels and stay away from fighting for the entirety of the match if they really wanted to. This makes things very frustrating when just trying to finish someone off, and the room transitions can get old fast if they're triggered too often. Another positive to bring up are the Claytalities and the super combos. Claytalities, a pun on Fatalities from Mortal Kombat, are deadly and often humorous finishing moves, of which there are many of in this game. Every character has plenty to try out. Super combos are basically like the MK Brutalities, insanely long combo moves that are used to finish off nearly beaten opponents. These are also really fun to watch. Breaking down the positives and negatives in this game is very simple. 63 1/3 has more fun characters to play with. They all have greatly improved sprites that show off the detail of the clay sculptures much more. There's plenty of levels, tons of special moves and Claytalities, and the game still retains that wonderful ClayFighter humor from the previous entries. The negatives, however, hit hard. The 3D backgrounds may have been neat for the time, but they're nowhere near as charming as the clay backgrounds of the originals. But most disappointingly, the gameplay itself is clunkier than ever. It's almost like with C2 they took one step forward, and then here 2 steps back. Whether this is due to a rush to meet the deadline or just issues with experimenting in 3 dimensions, 63 1/3 does not live up as a good or even decent fighting game. This is definitely just something you play casually with a friend to have some laughs. As it so happens, just like with ClayFighter Tournament Edition, 63 1/3 got its own update as well. And I have a story about that. My copy of 63 1/3 was given to me by a childhood friend, the label ripped off, so I never knew what the cover art was supposed to look like. And you could kind of see my little brother wrote my name on it because one day he decided to write my nickname all over my games. And I didn't have internet at the time to look it up. Usually if I ever got to rent a game, it was at a local, family-owned video store that didn't really have much. But one day, for whatever reason, on some rare occasion, we happened to be at Blockbuster Video instead. And something caught my eye. It was ClayFighter for N64, but it had the subtitle Sculptor's cut. Now, most kids probably wouldn't think much of this, or even if they did, they wouldn't really want to waste much thought on such a mediocre game. The fact that I even looked at it close enough to see the word Sculptor's cut was unlikely to begin with, since I didn't even know what the original game's cover looked like, and I could have just assumed that that's what it was. But I had a soft spot for this game, so I was willing to take the risk to use a rare game renting opportunity to see if there was something different about this specific cartridge. I took it home, turned the game on, and lo and behold, I was hit with this awesome intro theme song I had no idea existed. There was 4 brand new characters that were cut from the first version. The patriotic Lady Liberty, the once believed to be dead Lockjaw Pooch, High Five, the giant mutated hand of Dr. Killin, and the Zappa Yow Yow Boys, the cannibalistic natives of the island who want everyone gone. The game even included a more in-depth storyline and rivalries between each of the characters. Sure, some of the moves and Claytalities were missing, but all this extra content more than made up for it. And they even managed to fix the 3D roaming problem of the original by locking the fighters on a 2D axis. The day I had to return the game was a sad one, and I knew it was likely the only chance I'd ever have at renting it, and probably playing it, ever again. Years pass, I grow up, and I have disposable income of my own finally, and I start collecting games from my past, both at local flea markets and online. One day I decide to look up that awesome version of 63 1/3 that I remembered from my childhood. No one even liked or cared about that game. Surely I could find it for cheap, right? That's when the worst happened. The game was going for hundreds of dollars online. Hundreds! As it turns out, Sculptor's Cut was one of, if not the, rarest official N64 game, due to the fact that it only had limited copies available for rent exclusively at Blockbuster. So there went my dreams of ever owning the complete ClayFighter series. Still, what if that's not all? As it so happens, Interplay did announce a remake of Sculptor's Cut called ClayFighter Call of Putty to come out for the Nintendo Wii and DS, but it got cancelled. Thankfully, in 2015, Interplay announced something even better, a huge trilogy mashup that would include all the characters and levels from every game in the series, including HD graphics, and most importantly, a redone fighting engine that would fix the clunkiness of the previous entries, and that one got cancelled too. But in 2017, Interplay began work on a reboot of the series that cancelled. It was cancelled. I'm not joking. If all of this sounds crazy to you, it's because it is. It wasn't until an anonymous programmer who was working on the 2015 announced project decided to leak some info online that we finally got some answers. The anonymous ex-staff claims that the current CEO of Interplay was basically running the company into the ground. He hired the team he was on to make the new game, and they all worked on the project for a year without seeing a cent of pay, promised royalties from the unreleased game instead. He refused to give them assets from the previous games that they were promised, and just continually served as a roadblock for the entire development, not wanting to lift a finger to provide bare necessities required for making the game. Eventually the team disbanded, rightfully so, and the project was shelved to make way for another doomed one. In order to prove the validity of his statements, the anonymous poster posted a number of high-quality images of ClayFighter assets, and inside information that had never been heard before, including new images of Hobocop, a character that was removed from both versions of the N64 game for being too offensive, and even an image of Dr. Killen as he would have appeared in ClayFighter 2, as was apparently originally planned. So does that mean C2 was going to have a proper boss fight after all? Did every ClayFighter game suffer due to time constraints and could have been much more than they were? These are the only bits of information that say that this could indeed be the case. As for the future of ClayFighter, things are pessimistically uncertain for now. It's been 20 years since the last title. Will we ever see a new one? So that was the ClayFighter series. So let's be honest, it's a really rough series. It's not the best, not even close when it comes to fighting games. But just the charm and humor of the character and just the games, and you could just tell they put a lot of heart into it. And it's just, I don't know, there's just something really fun about it. It overall, I wouldn't recommend it if you're a fighting game fan really, but if you just think it looks interesting, then I don't know, I kind of recommend it just to see. You know, maybe you'll get a kick out of it like I did. Now, I'm not sure who owns the rights to the series now since Interplay just sold everything off, but I really hope that whoever ends up with it does something with it, because for years now we've been promised like a new ClayFighter, but it just never happens every time. So, I don't know. I'm not sure what the future is for ClayFighter, if there is a future for ClayFighter, but I'm just gonna keep waiting, keep hoping, and keep on ClayFighting. ClayFighter. Anyways, thank you. This has been Jay Reviews. This has been a ClayFighter series review. Hope to see you guys next time. See ya. Jay out. Out. That's where you turn the camera off.
Play those games with your baby. Don't play the game with your baby. Play those